Commissioner, we are ready whenever you are.
Terrific. All right. Well, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the commissioners and to members of staff and members of the public who've chosen to join us this evening. Thanks for joining us. I'd like to introduce the topics for discussion and action on our agenda this evening by reiterating our mandate. The mandate of the Commission set out in the Washington State Redistricting Act is to accomplish state legislative and congressional redistricting in accordance with the Washington State Constitution. The bipartisan commission was created to listen to the public every 10 years so that districts would be drawn by statute and with public input. As the chair of the commission, I will articulate and manage the commission's process, and in my role as chair, I will ensure the process is as participatory, fair, and equitable as is possible. The 4 voting commissioners have power and responsibility to vote, ultimately creating and adopting a redistricting plan. Voting commissioners will make decisions that will create maps to best represent the interest of Washingtonians. Those of you from the public joining us today, welcome. It's my goal to engage communities across Washington as fully as I can and to hear and address your concerns and requests. Throughout our tenure as commissioners, we'll hear public comments that are important, ideas and requests, and even injustices that may fall outside our ability to effectively respond. There are issues you may bring forward in your public comments that we may not be able to address. We can listen to you and be sure to capture your thoughts, questions, and requests. I will do my best to synthesize these in every meeting, and we will respond to them as we are able. We will certainly deliberate on the issues where we do have jurisdiction, and where we don't, I'll do my best to refer you to those who may be able to respond more effectively. We have received some requests for the removal of a commissioner. The commissioners have each independently considered whether the commission has the authority to remove any voting commissioner appointed by the legislative parties pursuant to statute. The commission has also sought legal advice on this issue. The commission has concluded that it does not have the authority to remove a commissioner. We understand that many members of the community have very strong feelings on this issue, and we very much want to provide an opportunity for the public to be heard on this issue. But providing that opportunity needs to be balanced against the tremendous amount of work that the Redistricting Commission has before it. To balance all of the important and urgent matters before the Commission, we would ask that after today, that members of the public direct their comments and requests about this issue to the legislature. We ask that the public comment period for future meetings be reserved for matters that the Commission has authority to address. So now I'm going to just call roll. Commissioner Joe Fain.
Present.
Commissioner Paul Graves.
Present.
Commissioner April Sims.
Present.
Commissioner Brady Walkinshaw.
Present.
And I called roll in alphabetical order by last name. During our discussions, I will call on you each, commissioners, in an order that I will use throughout our meeting this evening so that each of you can anticipate when it's your turn. I will rotate for each discussion so that whoever speaks first will change in each discussion. So our order tonight is Commissioner Graves, Commissioner Walkinshaw, Commissioner Fain, Commissioner Sims. Our first action item tonight is to approve the meeting minutes for the meeting we held on February 21st, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Or have you had a chance to take a look at them? Okay, a second.
Second.
Are there items for discussion or amendment? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well then the motion passes. The third item on our agenda today or tonight contains items for discussion. And my hope is that in discussion, we can move issues forward that we can take action on in a future meeting. Today's meeting is a special meeting once again, and as such, we can only take action or vote on action items. Our work in the discussion portion of the agenda is to develop agreements about how to move discussion items forward towards action. So I want to begin by reviewing our purpose and values, which I intend to do in every meeting. So together as a commission, we've agreed to the following values and mission, and these are included in the packet. On process, we've agreed to an open, transparent, and credible process to provide access to everyone, welcome all voices, and to be grounded in the statute. In terms of conduct, that we'll conduct ourselves with transparency, that commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith. All have agreed to collaborate and cooperate and to be respectful and civil. And in terms of outcomes, we've agreed to meet the deadline outlined by law as best we're able, to produce the best possible maps. And our ambition is that our plans and maps will be credible to everyone. At this time, I want to review the public input. So by this, I mean the input that we've received since our last meeting, between then and now, between the 21st of February and today. It's my intention to reiterate what I've heard from the public since our last meeting, and this is what I've heard. Many communications, 11 requested an investigation of allegations against Commissioner Fain, asking for his removal or for his resignation, while 2 communications endorsed his presence on the commission. As I stated previously, these requests fall beyond the authority of this commission. 5 communications voiced general interest in participating in meetings or asked for information about how to participate. I've done my best to respond to each of these requests. 3 communications made requests for meeting materials, and each of these has been provided with the materials requested. Next, I want to talk about parameters for billing, and this is a discussion item from our last meeting. In our meeting on February 21st, commissioners asked me to gather history and provide guidance on past norms around parameters for billing for commissioner time. RCW 44.04.070 states, members shall receive $100 of compensation for each day spent in the performance of their duties. So at this time, I'm going to provide you with a summary of the practice of commissioners during the 2011 redistricting cycle. 3 of the 5 commissioners were able to respond. 2 of those commissioners have passed. So the former chair, Laura Powell, noted that she counted meeting days or days with a substantial amount of work as a full day. She didn't split up day-long work across multiple days, regardless of the number of hours, and she didn't feel it was necessary to put something in writing or reach agreement as commissioners on the issue. She believed they used the honor system. Dean Foster said that the commissioners never deliberated on the issue of how to count days. He counted partial days in aggregate so that the 4 days or 2-hour work segments would be counted as a single day. He also said he didn't feel it was necessary to put something in writing or reach agreement as a commission on this issue. Tim Seiss said he also did cumulative or aggregate hours to be equal to a day of work for compensation. So if he worked 4 or more hours in a day, including travel, he would submit a per diem under RCW 43.03. And that's the summary, and I hope you find this summary helpful. My understanding is that previously commissioners individually determined what counted as substantial time and trusted each other to bill accordingly. So I guess I'd just like to ask if you have comments, beginning with Commissioner Graves.
There is a precedent for this in the legislature when the legislature goes into, well, during session and then in special session, there's a similar kind of per diem. And I think there's a similar process where it's each legislator kind of keeps track of his or her own time and then submits per diem requests as he or she feels appropriate. And I think perfectly fine with going with that system.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Walkinshaw?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Commissioner Fain?
Just appreciate you doing the additional research and speaking to the former colleagues, but no, I don't have any questions at this time.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sims?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add either.
Okay, great. So unless you have more comment, I'm going to ask that we move on to the next item for discussion, which is the Executive Director Search Update. Okay, so to date, we've received 18 applications for the position of Executive Director. Of the applications submitted, I and HR Legislative Support Services identified 4 highly qualified candidates for initial interviews. Interviews were held on Friday, the 5th of March, and concluded today, March 8th. I asked HR Legislative Support Services to close the job posting, given our intention to hire quickly and believing we have some really strong candidates. I've further narrowed down our pool to 2 exceptional candidates following our 4 initial interviews. We've scheduled long interviews with these 2 individuals, and I've invited nonpartisan senior staff to sit in and provide their feedback. My intention is to identify a finalist for your consideration. And if you're willing, I will ask HR to schedule interviews for each of you with the finalist. In order to move quickly, I suggest that bipartisan dyads interview the finalist. I think it's probably unlikely that all of us will be able to coordinate our schedules in a timely manner to interview together. So Commissioner Sims actually suggested bipartisan dyads, and I think that's a great suggestion. My hope is that we can then deliberate at our meeting on March 15th during an executive session, and then we would be authorized to hire. So I'd love to hear your comments, beginning with Commissioner Fain.
Well, I appreciate the update and also the work that you've done to narrow it down. When I heard a little bit about the quality of the candidates that were applying for the position, I was actually a little bit floored, considering 10 years ago it was a real struggle at that time to try to find some folks to come in and work in these positions, given the time constraints and the short-term nature. So I'm actually really excited that we've got some good folks, and I look forward to interviewing them.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sims?
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that's gone into, reviewing the applicants and interviewing them, and the work that will go into bringing a final applicant for our consideration. And look forward to, meeting the final 1 or 2. You said just 1 top candidate for our consideration, not the top.
I'm open to what you want to do. My primary concern right now, April, is time. So one of the things I wondered, if you wanted to interview the top 2, which would probably be terrific, is if you would be willing to connect with each of them by phone yourselves, so that we wouldn't have to schedule interviews for you. That might be a way to do it. That's how each of you interviewed me. And so I thought that worked out pretty well. If you think that would be a process we could follow, I think getting HR to schedule interviews for you, it's kind of a tall order, given that there are 4 of you between now and a week from now. And we could also extend the timeline if you wanted to do that.
Well, I think time is, of the essence at this point, and I'm starting to feel a little anxious that we don't have an executive director yet. So I would not suggest that we postpone our hiring timeline, but I think I would love to at least have a conversation with the top 2 candidates and provide you my input. And I don't know if you want to talk about, a standard format that we use for doing that, or whatever the rest of the commission feels comfortable doing, but I would certainly love to talk to both top applicants.
Thank you, Commissioner Sims. So I'm going to respond to you directly so that I won't forget my direct response. We have asked a series of standardized questions. We will have it across 2 interviews. So I think it would be okay for you to ask your own questions. We can give you the materials from the interviews with ratings, and you can take a look at those and then ask the questions that you like, if you want to do it that way.
That sounds great.
All right, great. Commissioner Graves?
Thanks, yeah, again, for for working so hard on this so far. I think that's a good plan. That if we can get the material on them, and then we can just plan on giving them a call directly. I agree that that's how we interviewed you, and I likewise thought that worked out really well. So I'm on board with that.
Okay, great. Commissioner Walkinshaw?
Yeah, thanks for all the hard work. This is great. I've also, just similar to what Commissioner Fain said, encouraged by the quality of applicants. A lot of great people. I like the idea of interviewing two candidates. I think that sounds like a great plan. I also personally, though, feel, Commissioner Sims and I haven't spoken about this, but I personally feel fine if I'm happy to waive kind of my interviewing activities next week if we wanted to, if anyone wants to waive theirs, but I'm happy to waive mine for ease of scheduling.
Okay, great. So the long interviews with senior staff and myself will take place on Wednesday. So that's on the 10th of March. And what I would like is for those people who want to conduct interviews to do so by Monday, which is the 15th. So that gives just a few days for you to do that. So what I'll do then is ask HR to help ease that process. The way we did it when you were interviewing me is I simply had your phone numbers and I called you. I don't know if that's going to be the best way, but I'll ask HR to help each of you to navigate that so that you'll be able to interview both finalists on your own. And would anyone else like to demur from interviewing? I'm not asking you to do that, but since Commissioner Walkinshaw suggested that, anyone, or are you the other three commissioners ready to interview two candidates?
I'd like to speak with both of the candidates, but I will not make my schedule a condition of moving forward. So if for whatever reason I'm not available, or if it doesn't work out, let's see. We certainly shouldn't slow things down, but if available,
I think both of the finalists are going to work really hard to accommodate you. That's my guess. All right, well, I think we have a process outlined. We will conduct long interviews on Wednesday. We'll submit our findings to you, to all four of you, and then I will instruct HR to help you determine how you want to interview two finalists. All right, terrific. Next item on the agenda is actually public comment, and I scheduled public comment ahead of action items. It seems like that worked out well last time, and I think that's what we'll do tonight as well. So folks who've had a chance to take a look at the packet may want to comment on those items prior to taking action. So our public comment period is just 15 minutes. And once again, to members of the public, I will call your name in groups of 3, at which time your status in Zoom will change from observer to panelist. When it's your turn, I'm going to call your name and you will have 1 minute to speak. At the end of your allotted time, you will be muted. We realize that 1 minute is a very brief time in which to share your comments. We've restricted the time today because of the amount of business we have on the agenda. We're interested in what you have to say and urge you to send your written comments to us via the following email address, which is comment@redistricting.wa.gov. And that email is also available on the website all the time. You can always submit your written comments there. I am now going to share my screen and just briefly, once again, go through the process for folks who are going to be engaged in public comment. Okay, public comment instructions. So you're going to click or tap the link included in the Zoom instructions, and this link is unique to you. It's prohibited from being shared. If the meeting is not yet opened for attendees to join, you'll see the following message. Well, it doesn't matter because the meeting has opened. Once you've joined the meeting, you will be in the attendee view and you will be able to adjust your microphone and speak by clicking the upward arrow next to the audio settings. When it's your turn to testify, the chair, that's me, will call your name. At this time, you will transition to the panelist view where you will be given permission to speak. During this transition, your Zoom window will briefly disappear and indicate it is rejoining the meeting. So don't hang up or panic at that point. It just takes just a few seconds. Once you've rejoined the meeting as a panelist, audio and video controls will display in the lower left corner. To change to gallery view, you want to change to gallery view to see the testimony timer. While on a desktop or laptop, locating the view icon in the upper right-hand corner of the window. Select gallery view. If you are on a phone or tablet, swipe left from active speaker view to change to gallery to view the testimony timer. Click the start video button and unmute to begin speaking to the commission. And once again, these instructions are available on the website as well. So now I'm going to close. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All right. And I will read the list of the first 3 people who will testify tonight, beginning with, let's see. We have 2 senators with us tonight. Beginning with Senator Jeff Wilson. And Maria, can you remind me this? I printed this list this morning, and so I don't have the other senator on my list.
Neither of them are in the meeting right now. So we could maybe go forward with some other testifiers, and if they come into the meeting, then we can call them up.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. So we'll begin then with Jeff Morrison, Carl Brady, and Gretchen McDevitt. So Jeff will go first, and then Carl, and then Gretchen.
Chair, Jeff, Carl, and Gretchen are not in the meeting yet either.
Right, so we're moving a little quickly. We'll see. We'll see. The next 3 are Rennie Storm, Kelly Payne, and Terry Bates.
Hello. Can you see? Hi, can you see me?
Kelly, we can see you and we're ready to hear from you. When you're
Okay,
ready.
I'm Rennie Storm and I'm here speaking on behalf of Kelly Payne. We had conflicting meetings tonight. I'm a PCO for Thurston County, and we're having a general meeting, and so I'm going back and forth. So I just wanted to let you know that we're engaged here. We're interested, and we're trying to get as much as we can from this commission to see what's going on. And unfortunately, with conflicting meetings, it's a bit busy. So the next meeting, hopefully, we can participate a little more fully. And thank you. Thank you for your time.
You bet. Thank you for sharing. We look forward to seeing you in future meetings. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, next is Kelly Payne. Oh, that was Rennie for Kelly. And then Terry Bates.
I'm speaking for Kelly, so mark her off.
Right, got it.
Chair, that was the only person who showed up from that panel.
Terrific. So next is Jeffrey Olson, Carol Moeller, and Susan Griggs.
Okay, am I on?
You are welcome, Jeffrey Olson. We're ready for you.
The reason why I'm talking is I'm one of those that is redistricting buff. I have testified in the last two redistricting. I have calculated the population and I have done other research. What I propose is creating bulletin boards for each, let's say, congressional district where we are able to post data ahead of time instead of waiting until September 30th. And I'm free to answer anyone's question.
Okay, well, so why don't you tell us more about that, Mr. Olson?
It's basically to allow the local people of that, say, congressional districts to see all the input and all the files that people have already created for congressional district and the legislative districts inside the congressional district. Having data available would help the discussion along. And I have plenty of data.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much for coming and sharing that with us. All right, next is Carol Moeller.
Hello, I am just here to gather information. I'm just trying to educate myself on the process, and so I have nothing to add or no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Carol, and we look forward to seeing you at future meetings. And next is Susan Griggs.
Hello, my name is Susan Griggs, and thank you for allowing me to testify. I grew up in Puerto Rico and went to Washington State in order to pastor a Spanish-speaking congregation in Wenatchee. And I discovered that the emphasis that is placed by the white American culture on the written word is not evidence in all of the other cultures in Washington State, who put more emphasis on the oral word and the relationship between individuals. I know that there isn't going to be that much time for people to give public testimony, and I want to make sure that you do provide those opportunities for individuals to provide public input, not only through written testimonies, but also through oral testimonies, either in person or through pre-recorded videos. I would recommend that the commission provide a YouTube channel where individuals could upload their videos. I would also like the commission to facilitate the ability of persons who speak up.
Thank you, Ms. Griggs. I appreciate your testimony, and I didn't catch the last part of what you said, but I imagine you were asking for multilingual capacity. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And next is Andrew Brewer, Toller Bryan, and Casa Hannon. Okay, let's see. Are you here, Andrew? I think.
Yeah, I'm just in listening mode, so I'll pass on any comment. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew. And so how about you, Toller? Toller Bryan?
Toller Bryan is not in the meeting, Chair.
Okay, terrific. And so Casa Hannon?
Thank you very much. I'm Casa Hannon. I live in Renton, Washington. I work in the technology sector, and I'm a voter in Legislative District 41 and Congressional District 9. I'm here to ask the Commission to create ways for the public to provide input into the redistricting process. With record voter turnout in the last election, there's renewed interest in and awareness of democratic processes, including redistricting. With this bipartisan commission, Washington State is already ahead of many others in terms of having a fair approach to redistricting. With transparency and public engagement, your work could become a national model. I'd like to see a website that allows video and text testimony to be uploaded. I'd like to see ways for community gatherings to be able to generate maps. I'd like to see us use applications available like Dave's Redistricting app and Representable so that community meetings can propose mapping solutions. I'd like you to tell us how you will take input so that everyone who wants to be heard will be. I ask that the commission provide clear and accessible means for.
Thank you very much, Casa, for your input. And I'm sorry you were cut off, and hopefully you'll have the opportunity to email your full comments. I appreciate that. And then I'll be able to reiterate those in our next meeting. And so I see that the last two people on my list are Jay Jennings and Richard Rogers. And so Jay, are you here to observe tonight, or would you like to comment?
Jay Jennings is not in the meeting chair.
He's not here. All right.
Actually, scratch that. He just showed up.
Okay, great. So Jay, I see that you're here. Was it your intention to testify tonight, or are you observing? Jay Jennings.
Hi, I am so sorry this happened twice now. I do like to register, but I was just observing, and thank you for all five of you for your work. It's paying off, and you guys are building momentum.
Great, thank you. Richard Rogers.
There's no Richard Rogers, Chair.
Thank you. Sean, I wonder if any other folks have shown up who had originally signed up for public testimony but haven't had the opportunity yet.
Yes, Melissa has just joined and she is ready to testify.
Terrific. All right. Welcome, Melissa.
Hello. You ready?
Yes, we're ready for you.
As you develop the outreach plan, here are insights from my years of statewide advocacy efforts. All 29 federally recognized tribes in Washington state deserve formal government-to-government outreach as early as possible. The splitting of reservations in the previous redistricting was shameful and should not be repeated. Next, when I help people understand how their communities were divided into districts, whether that's a city, a neighborhood, or a tribe, among the hardest areas to explain are what I refer to as the pokey bits. Please prioritize outreach to stakeholders in the pokey bits about how that has impacted their community. Also, relative populations among districts have changed dramatically in the last 10 years, effectively creating underrepresentation of fast-growing areas from the moment lines were drawn. Please prioritize gathering growth data to ensure boundaries remain represented for at least the first few years. Lastly, it has a chilling effect on input from survivors of sexual assault, knowing that they will be presenting to an alleged rapist. Please explore methods available to the Commission to create opportunities for survivors to participate without this hindrance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. We appreciate your testimony. And so the public testimony is always recorded in the minutes. And of course, this meeting is recorded, but I am going to reiterate the interest that I've heard tonight from people who have opted to share with us. Before I do that, I want to ask Maria, have the senators been able to join us?
They have not logged on.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to move forward. So what I heard is an interest in getting in involving as many people in participation, in public participation as possible in the work of the commission. And I've heard for populations by region to be posted and accessible in a way so that people from within communities will be able to access information that is specific to their community. I also heard a desire for opportunity for people to share orally and not just simply in writing. And I heard a variety of different suggestions for how we might be able to do that, whether it's in person or pre-recorded, including a YouTube channel or using other kinds of apps. I also heard a desire for reaching out to people so they can engage in group maps, and an interest in us providing really clear input on how we're going to our process for taking input. And I heard a couple of times a desire for an outreach plan for us to work specifically with Native American tribes and a government-to-government process, and to prioritize outreach to people who have potentially been previously separated from folks in their region. And so this concludes our public input at this time. So the next item on our agenda is to take action.
Commissioner Augustine?
Yes.
Before we move to the next item on the agenda, I wonder if we could revisit the ED plan quickly. There's something been just kind of nagging me is the process that we identified and the potential liability we might expose ourselves to if we are, interviewing two different candidates and not using the same criteria to evaluate them, using the questions, making sure that both of our top two candidates are actually interviewed and have access, that we're giving the same amount of consideration to each applicant, and what kind of potential liability that exposes our commission to if we don't follow a really clear process. So I'd like to revisit that with my fellow commissioners in terms of what we might want to do for process, knowing that we don't have a lot of time between now and next week, and that our calendars are really packed, but that we still would like to have some FaceTime. That, maybe it's possible that we could identify a 1 hour block of time this week where we could spend time with the top two candidates, all two of us at a time or so. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what the right process is, but I'm a little unsettled by what we agreed to.
Terrific. So I would love to hear your proposal for a process, Commissioner Sims. Please give us a process that you have in mind. So I heard a couple of things in there. One is that what if we scheduled half-hour interviews back to back? And then we could conduct those interviews in dyads, and I can provide you with the interview questions we used in our short interview. So those finalists would be hearing those questions again, but I think that's okay. You would be able to hear for yourself their answers to those the short interview questions. How does that strike you?
I would be open to that. I'm happy to make time for that.
Okay, Commissioner Fain.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think if the applicants set aside an hour of their time and just, if legal counsel believes it's appropriate, then 30 minutes with two commissioners and then swap. And I think that I get to find an hour block this week that accommodate everyone.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Graves.
Works for me too, and I'll try to make sure that I can try to be as flexible as I can this week on scheduling, because I know time is important here.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Walkinshaw?
Agree with what's been said.
Okay, great. So I will then, here's what I'll do. I will instruct HR to send you the initial interviewing questions and to work with you to set up half-hour interviews in dyads. I like the suggestion that it would be 1 hour and then you would swap. I'm not quite sure how to do that on Zoom, but I am quite certain that it's possible. So I will work on that, and we will somehow devise a plan between Wednesday afternoon and Monday evening, if that works. So that would be the window. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sims, for voicing your concern. And do you feel okay about this process?
I do, thank you.
Okay, great, let's do it. All right. So next we're moving on to action items. And the first item on our agenda tonight is the Commission Code of Conduct. In the packet of materials is a draft document that was put together by staff under my supervision per the process that we identified at our meeting on February 21st. I hope that each of you have had an opportunity to review it. This draft is still being reviewed by council, I want to suggest that we discuss it, but delay taking action until a time when council has the opportunity to fully review it and comment on it. In fact, it's gone around through a couple of different rounds. And so I think there are two different bodies that are taking a look at it now. And so first, I just want to hear your comments. What were your thoughts as you were reading through it? And then what we'll do is we'll take your comments in the minutes and make adjustments as you suggest. So let's begin with Commissioner Graves.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, I it so happened in my day job to spend a lot of my time reviewing codes of conduct like this, and it's got everything you want in there. It's got really clear statement of what we expect and who this applies to. It's got some really clear and tracking the legal language of what is unacceptable, and then it's got some really clear procedures for who a complainant can raise issues with, how they're going to be handled. Some really clear things in there about no, you can't make a promise of confidentiality or a promise that any particular outcome will happen, but that we treat everybody's complaints seriously. And then it's got a pretty clear process for how complaints are handled, resolved, and then an appeals process. And I like all of that, and I don't have any substantive changes to it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Walkinshaw?
I agree with your proposal, Commissioner Augustine, to just give a little more time for the legal input and so forth, and hold the vote till the next meeting. I think that's smart. I think we're headed in the right direction.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Commissioner Fain?
Yeah, I've had a chance to review it. Like Commissioner Graves, I will probably be stealing some of this language for some of the codes of conduct that I need to put together for other organizations. It's very well written. I did have a question about the appeals process to the Attorney General's office. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I just didn't know if that was the customary appeals process for other departments, and really that was my only question. Otherwise, I'm ready to adopt it once staff's had a chance to look at it.
I'm glad you brought that up. The answer is no, it's not customary, and also they're not necessarily comfortable with that. So we are still in pursuit of how to consider running an appeals process. There are a couple of different ideas on the table, and I would love to hear your ideas. And we will be circulating multiple drafts between now and the 15th as we're trying to solve that. That's a good question. And in particular, there is a question of if it's the chair, so the chair can preside over a large portion of this, but if there's a complaint against the chair, then what's the process for investigating that? And so we're really trying to do due diligence to determine how to do that well. Commissioner Sims?
Yeah, no, I agree with the process that you outlined. I think I have a new appreciation for the challenge that it is to create a code of conduct for a commission as unique as ours. I do, I think a good code of conduct or a good policy clearly outlines a resolution process for all the parties involved. So I have an outstanding question about, commissioner staff that are not necessarily the staff of the commission, but are the staff of the caucus, and like what avenues do they have should they need resolution, and where they fit in this code. And I don't know if that's part of what's being reviewed by legal experts. And I think just the accountability pieces with the AG's office, nice to know that they're not interested in playing that role, but I guess that also puts us kind of back to square one. So I appreciate the opportunity to get more legal advice and to be a little more thoughtful before we adopt this, and hope that we can move forward with adoption next week. In addition to having legal review, I just want to check in and see, have we had any HR professionals also review this and flag it for anything that we may not be thinking about at this time?
So what I understand, so the answer is not really. We have had legal counsel that specializes in HR review it. Okay, here's Bernard Dean. Thank you, Bernard, for being willing to comment.
Sure. So the policy is taken from the House Respectful Workplace Policy. And so it was circulated to House Counsel, who's also on this call, Ohad Lowy, and he provided some feedback to the chair. And then I believe that the Senate has also had their person that handles HR issues review it as well. And actually, she helped draft the House policy when she was House Counsel. So, so we've had HR staff as well as our attorneys review the draft. We did have some concerns because there are some differences between how some of these situations are handled between the House and sort of the obligations that we have, particularly under the Public Records Act, as contrasted with the Commission, especially as it relates to the release of materials. And so there were some areas where we had flagged a few concerns, and likewise, we shared the concern that since the Commission is ostensibly a legislative agency under Title II of the Constitution, as well as in the RTWs that pertain to the legislature, there is some concern if the Attorney General's office would be making actual decisions related to personnel matters and actually making decisions on those issues. So there were some concerns we raised with respect to that as well. So, and like I said, our House Counsel is on the line and can provide additional context if needed.
Thank you, Bernard. And our AG Counsel has actually provided some language in response to the issues that were flagged. And so I look forward to sharing that with all of the commissioners. And so I guess I would ask if there are others that would like to share at this time. So I think you said, Bernard, that House Counsel is here. Is that right?
That's correct. Ohad Lowy's on the line as well.
Great. So would you like to share, Mr. Lowy?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. I think to address the one issue about what's available to staff. So one, there is the House of Representatives policy that our caucus staff could come and file complaints. But additionally, I believe in looking at the draft for the commission, caucus staff would also come under the policy and could file any concerns there as well. But I guess I would defer to the Attorney General's office on that issue. But that was at least my impression from reading it. As Bernard mentioned, there were some things we highlighted about regarding public records and the appeal process as well. And those concerns have been kind of shared. And I look forward to seeing the suggestions from the Attorney General's office, and I'm happy to answer. Since the underlying policy is really a House policy, I'm happy to answer any questions the Commission may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lowy, for being present tonight and for your assistance in this matter. I would ask the commissioners if you have questions for Mr. Lowy at this time. All right, thank you. So Commissioner Sims, I'll make sure that there's specific language, including caucus staff. I heard that that they could be included, or that this policy would cover them, but I'll make sure that there's specific language that's inserted. And I know there will be multiple drafts going around between now and next Monday. So if I drop the ball on that, I hope that you will flag it for me, but I think that there are enough of us paying attention that we'll make sure that that's included. Next, I want to talk about commission parameters for AG Counsel. And so the commission has been assigned counsel from the Attorney General's office, and in discussion with counsel per the process outlined in our meeting February 21st, I propose the following. I'm going to share my screen once again so that you can take a look at this proposal. It was also submitted with the packet materials. I have dual screens here, so I'm not sure when I share. Do you see the small one or do you see the big one? I can't tell. Are you able to see this proposal clearly?
I see your slide and your next slide page.
Yeah, I don't know.
Any notes if they were captured there?
It looks clear, Commissioner.
Okay, great. So I will work on that, April, and see if I can figure out how to give you the big one.
I did just fine, and I've got my glasses around here somewhere.
I can't see anything without my glasses. Okay, so here is the proposal. So each commissioner may receive up to 3 hours per month of legal advice. The chair and executive director may receive up to 10 hours per month of legal advice, and additional time must be approved by at least 3 commissioners. The above time limits would not apply to questions relating to the Open Public Meetings Act, Public Records Act, or preparation, publication of regular special meeting agendas, which is really helpful. And because attorney-client privilege flows between the AGO and the commission itself, the AGO legal advice provided to an individual commissioner will not be privileged as to other commissioners. So commissioners seeking to obtain strictly confidential legal advice on an individual basis may seek private or independent counsel. So that is the proposal before us that was created in collaboration with counsel.
Just a point of clarification is that 10 hours per person in point 2, or is that 10 hours shared between the chair and the executive director?
That's 10 hours each.
Okay.
Can you remind me? I know we talked about it last time. Is the primary issue here that maybe there's like some billing guidelines or something like that that's kind of like marked against us, and we just don't want to be running up AG time, or was there something else? I can't refresh myself on what we talked about last time.
I believe that AG Council requested parameters from us so that they would be able, they want boundaries so that they'll know what it is that they are being asked to do on a regular basis. And I think of special importance is the issue related to privilege. So they want us to understand that the AG represents the commission and not individual commissioners.
Commissioner Grace, I can provide a little more backdrop. We just wanted a little bit more of a parameter so that we understand when a request is coming from the commission as opposed to an individual commissioner, and that request has sort of the agreement of at least a majority of the commissioners. Sometimes there can rise, and it hasn't come up yet, but it could rise, where there's a question that other commissioners will not agree to. For example, does this map comply with the Voting Rights Act? Other commissioners might not agree to get that advice, or that they want to seek that advice from the AGO. And so because this is not a traditionally hierarchical organization where we understand exactly where the instruction is coming from, we were looking for some parameters that still allow us to provide legal advice on a very expedited basis when it's necessary, and then to understand when it is a request that's coming from the commission itself, as opposed to an individual member. There are a lot of ways in which we can structure that type of parameters. This was one of the proposals that we thought of, but we're happy to consider other types. And if the commission does not think that's necessary, we're just wanting some instruction of how we should, when should we elevate a request for legal advice to the rest of the commission to see whether agreement is necessary. And so that's basically the reason why we are proposing this.
Very helpful. Thanks very much. And with that, this makes sense to me.
Okay, great. So I want to ask for amendments. Are there amendments that you would like to make? And we'll begin with Commissioner Thane.
I don't have any. Is this something that you're looking for us to then formally adopt it as a formal position of the commission, or just a guideline we're going to be operating in?
Well, it's an action item, so
Okay. Got it.
I'm asking for you to adopt it today.
Okay, great. No, I'll be supportive.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sims?
I think I'm still processing why we would limit our access to legal counsel from the AG in the execution of our responsibilities as commissioners. So with that, kind of outstanding question in my mind, I don't have any I don't necessarily have any amendments at this time. I would just like to lift up that should this become a challenge, that we might want to revisit this policy for a different action at a later time. I'm not quite sure, I don't foresee myself needing more than 3 hours of advice from the Attorney General's office today, but an issue could arise where I need more access and more advice to make sure that I'm being dutiful in the work that I'm charged with doing. So I'd love to make sure that we can revisit this should we need to extend those timeframes or those limitations.
Thank you, Commissioner Sims. And so I would ask Tara to comment on that once again. I also want to just point out that our council, AG Council, is a shared resource. So I think this is an opportunity for us to determine collectively how we're going to share that resource, so that we don't end up in a situation where one person or one commissioner is using up more time that would preclude others from being able to use that resource. And so if additional time is requested, then a vote of 3 would make that easily possible, to make sure that you had additional time. That's my read. Would you like me to ask Tara and we can hear her comment?
Yes, this is really just a parameter, sort of a default option. Additional time can be requested with approval. We can change that parameter at any time, and we can create an exigent circumstances exception if that would be helpful. If there's something that comes up that requires urgent action, that does not apply, that time limit might not apply.
I think I'd be comfortable with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to ask for an amendment then. And so it sounds like, Commissioner Sims, you would like for there to be an addition of, you would want us to define a circumstance in which that would be lifted. Is that right? So where you could go beyond 3 hours in some circumstance.
Sure.
So if you would like to make the amendment, that would be fabulous.
Okay. I see what you did there. Move to amend to include language that allows for additional access in an emergent situation. Or a time sensitive, regarding a time sensitive matter.
Terrific. All right. Commissioner Graves?
And is that, I sort of understood and Commissioner Sims, I get where you're getting at too, and I have some of the similar type concerns. When I saw the initial proposal and it included the thing that you can go above those initial limits with the support of 3 commissioners, that's what I thought would be like a safety valve for those kind of situations. But maybe I understood that wrong, or maybe there's something I'm missing in that, and I'd be interested in Madam Chair, your thoughts on what, if I am reading that wrong, and if not, I'm totally behind the idea of having some general guidelines and then some kind of safety valve with, I think a majority vote would probably make sense, so that we can, make sure that we're being clear with the AG's office for who's asking for what, and making sure that we're sharing that resource well, but also making sure that we can be flexible when we need to.
Okay, so I think what you're asking, Commissioner Graves, is if we have a majority vote to extend that time, that I think you're saying that's the, that's a mechanism by which, we could increase time, but you're also open to including language for, exceptional circumstances.
Yeah, that's how I read it. Yeah, I guess I could see a situation where we adopt a policy saying that, it's 3 hours per person with the exception of emergent, kind of an emergency or an emergent situation, but then we have some dispute over whether it really qualifies as an emergent situation. And just seems like it'd be a good idea to have a process in place ahead of time for how we decide what those situations really are.
Okay, great. So Tara, I'm going to ask you again for your input.
We could leave that call to council of whether or not it's a time sensitive situation as a legal matter. That's one option. I'm not exact. There are other options that are available. We don't want to make this more difficult than it really needs to be. We're just looking for some level of instruction so that we know when to come to the commission to seek majority approval for a particular type of request.
It's, if I may.
Yeah, please.
It sounds like there might still need to be more discussion on this and maybe bring this back next time for a vote with some of this input, unless we felt like we needed it now. My perspective on this, I'm happy to support what folks are also discussing. My perspective is, I'm sort of wondering why we need this, and I'm kind of wondering maybe just we could ask the assistant attorney, the attorney general's office, to come back to the commission if it becomes an issue that we're using too much time and ask us to propose a policy. But we may need to table this until next time for.
Okay, so at this point, I would ask for a motion to approve, but I wonder if we have enough questions that it seems like it would be wise to go another round, and we can do some more work and pass it around and work on it or bring it to yet another meeting. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, if my colleagues want to vote, I would vote for it as well. I just didn't know if folks are on the same page.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sims.
Well, I think I'm just still trying to wrap my mind around what's driving this. And I wonder if we could get some historical data from commissions in the past and how maybe did they come up with a similar policy or agreement? Was there, an exorbitant amount of use by one commissioner over another that created, I wonder if we're trying to solve for a problem that we haven't even identified. So I think some additional data would be good. And I would agree that maybe we could table it just so I can, and it's probably just a matter of my own personal comfort. And I'm just kind of not sure why we are doing this.
Okay, great. Commissioner Fain, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, I had a related but different question. In the PowerPoint that you had there, you had the item about that individual commissioners could seek legal counsel outside the Attorney General's office if they wanted to have confidentiality. And I guess my question is from a public records standpoint and from a state action standpoint, if a commissioner is independently getting legal advice from an external attorney, is that protected under attorney-client? Is it protected from the public records exemption for attorney-client communication? How does payment authorization for that work? I mean, I guess being that bullet point was there, it kind of opened up a number of questions. I could certainly see the value where having confidential information during a negotiation of a legal nature would be beneficial, but I'm not sure we have a process in place that clearly establishes what the guidelines around that might be.
Okay, great. Of course, I don't have answers to those questions, so I will, I am then.
And we can have them come back with that answer when they come back with the other answer, be totally fine.
So I think it's clear that we're not ready to move forward with this proposal. And so I believe I have what I need to work with council to come up with an alternate proposal. And so we will delay action until our next meeting, if everyone is comfortable with that. All right, let's do that. And so, and I will investigate further and bring back additional proposals. All right, so the next item on our agenda, item 6, is additional discussion items. The first is a request for consultation from the Colville Nation. And so this request is included in the packet materials. The chairman of the Colville Nation, Rodney Costin, drafted a letter to the commission on February 9th, requesting consultation prior to drafting maps. And Chairman Costin's letter is included in the packet. So I submit this request for your consideration. And again, this isn't an action item, it's just a discussion item. So I'm asking for your comments and additional instructions for moving the request forward. And so let's begin with Commissioner Graves.
I thought it was it was a good letter. I want to make sure that we're getting input from groups across the entire state, especially ones that really care about this process and have a keen interest in it. It struck me that we probably can do a couple of things that would be useful in response to letters like that, and then some of the others that we've got and some of them that we'll surely get in the future. I think it'd be good if we had you, the chair, at least respond in some way to each one of them saying, thanks, we received it, we really appreciate it, we want your input. That we make sure that all groups like that know about our meeting schedule, and especially when we hold public hearings, if they're geographically focused on their area, so they can talk at those. And then I assume that it would be a problem from the Public Meetings Act point of view to try to schedule, an entire commission meeting for individual groups who ask for it. But it seems like it might be a useful thing to do that the bipartisan dyad idea, or maybe even just have the chair or something like that, to meet with ones where meet with requests like that where it makes sense. Because I want to, really be respectful to groups that care about this and take the time to write in about it. But I also want to make sure we're not running ourselves into any public meetings problems.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Graves. Next is Commissioner Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do think this is going to be a great activity as the executive director comes on board, who are interviewing this week, and filling out the commission staff. I do think as that individual comes on, it will be important to think about a really strong engagement process with tribal nations as we go through this. So I do certainly think we need to think about how we really thoughtfully do that prior to drawing maps as we engage in the process. So I would hold till we hire our executive director.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Fain.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're going to receive a lot of email requests, and I think we're probably not going to be in a position to respond to all of them. And I do think the executive director will be in a good position to field some of these and help it inform maybe where our public hearings are going to be. I would say this letter, as a notable exception, we can't respond to all of them. There is some very specific outreach that we may want to do in an organized fashion, as Commissioner Walkinshaw is referring to. There's definitely some organized communication we should be doing with our tribal partners. We don't know necessarily if they're all unified in terms of how they'd like to see those maps drawn and consolidated into one district, or what those individual opinions are. And so it probably warrants a conversation, either commissioner to tribal representatives, or the commission as a whole having a meeting where we're just considering issues surrounding those tribal relationships. So again, it's a good discussion to be having, and I think it'll be helpful when we get our staff on board to organize a really positive response.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sims.
Thank you. I have an outstanding question about this too. I wasn't sure if this consultation request was a formal request. I know that the Attorney General's office has a formal consultation request for the recognized tribes in Washington State. I don't know how that fits in with our work as a commission. If the commission should adopt a formal policy, if we can adopt a formal policy. I won't pretend to know all of the specifics around the tribal consent and consultation policy that the Attorney General's office adopted in 2019, I think it is. So I wasn't sure if this was I think the question for me, is this a formal request or an informal request? Because I think that then would drive whatever decision we make moving forward.
Thank you. So I can certainly find out and follow up. This seemed to me to be a formal request. I can follow up on that. It very much appeared to be a formal request to me. And so what I have done is I have reached out to the Colville Nation and let them know that we would be considering that request this evening. So there are folks here observing this meeting. And I then said that I would let them know the next steps immediately, this week of what the next steps would be. And so what I can do, Commissioner Sims, is follow up and confirm whether or not this is a formal request, and then work with council to determine appropriate action based on that, based on your advice. And we can talk about that. I do think that we are going to want to come up with a formal response specific to Native American nations. And so I will be in touch with them first to confirm that this is a formal request for consultation, and then to outline next steps.
Yeah, I think it's just, I appreciate that. It's my understanding that tribal consultation is a different process, that there is a formal process involved, which is a little bit different than, I think, outreach and some of the other things that we might want to do when we get an executive director engaged or hired on. And so I just want to make sure that we are being culturally competent in terms of how we are engaging with our tribal members. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. And so I will confirm and work with council to pursue that. Thank you, Commissioner Sims. All right. So finally, the last discussion item is I personally have received requests from organizations for participation in public training and recruitment or public outreach. I'm sure many of you have received similar requests. In the past, commissioners have responded to these invitations individually as they deemed appropriate. As you know, we're each of us, public figures in terms of we're responsive to the public. So, but before I respond to invitations, I wanted to open this to discussion. As the chair, I wanted to make sure that you're aware of it and to get your comments as I step into some of these spaces. So beginning with Commissioner Walkinshaw, comments.
I wholeheartedly, I support it. And I think we should probably just do it on a one-by-one basis.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Fain?
I think it's great that that we're getting requests, and I think you should take as many of them as you're willing to participate in. I think it'll be great for us to spend as much time talking to members of the public that are interested in what we're up to. I'd agree with Commissioner Walkinshaw. I think as those requests in, we can just have staff filter them or make our own independent decisions, or if we're unable to take something we've been invited to share it with other commissioners to see if they're interested in or available to do that. So again, I'm excited that folks are interested.
Terrific. Commissioner Sims?
Agree. You're a strong representative of the commission, so appreciate you being willing to talk to the public.
Thank you. Commissioner Graves?
Agreed. Go forth.
Okay, so what I can do then is for every engagement that I participate in, I will just report back to you at our very next meeting. So I'll just include sort of on the agenda item, just a discussion point saying, hey, I did this on this date and here's the summary, just to make sure we're all engaged and you're all aware of my activities. Thank you. So I would like to, at this time, adjourn this meeting. We did it with 15 minutes to spare, so congratulations, commissioners. I want to thank you for your service and for your time and attention. I recognize the commitment that each of you, Brady and Paul and Joe and April, demonstrate in your leadership and being part of this process. Thank you. I also want to thank staff and members of the public who have taken the time to join us on a Monday evening. Sean Murray provided tech support today, so thank you to Sean. And Maria Garza provided admin support, including taking minutes, so thank you. I also want to acknowledge individual commissioners, staff members who put effort into meeting commission requests, including the development of materials and drafting documents. And so thank you to Osta and Paul and Anton and Ali. Thank you to Lisa from Legislative Support Services, HR, for all the work you've been doing. Thank you, AG Council, Tara and Emma, for your help with preparation. And thank you to senior staff for being here as well. Bernard and Mr. Lowy, thank you for being here with us. And this meeting is now adjourned. Have a great evening.